Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, everyone, there at the International Conference of Learning Innovation in Malang, and greetings from Sweden. It was a privilege to come and visit the university there in Malang in the spring. I'm not able to be with you today, but I hope that my digital presentation will give you something to think about and hopefully stimulate discussion. So I will start my presentation by sharing my screen, and here we go. I've called my presentation Digital Challenges in Education, and the question mark really disruption or evolution. So I hope to answer some of that in the next few minutes. My name is Alastair Creelman. I work as an e-learning specialist at Linnæus University, which is in Sweden, in the southeast of Sweden. A picture of that in a moment. You're welcome to get in touch with me, and there's my email address and my Twitter name. So if we move on, map of Europe. That's where I came from. You might think my name doesn't sound very Swedish. I was born in Dundee in Scotland. I went to Edinburgh University, and amongst others, and many, many years ago, in fact 36 years ago, I moved to Sweden and have been there since then. And I'm working at Linnæus University, and you can see we're down in the southeast. And I can show you some pictures of what it looks like. The top left, that's where I am right this minute. That's the university library here in Kalmar. Down below, bottom left, you can see a picture of our new campus, which is being built in the harbour and is mostly ready now, but we will move very soon. And a couple of tourist pictures. We have a beautiful castle from over almost 1,000 years ago, and we also have a very beautiful cathedral in the city centre. A small town, but extremely interesting. Anyway, I'm not here to talk to you about tourism. Instead, I want to look at the road ahead and where we are in higher education today, especially when it comes to innovation. And the theme of that's the theme of the conference, learning and innovative learning and so on. I want to talk about some of the problems we face, some of the challenges we face, maybe some ideas of how we can face them, but also a bit about what's going on in the field, especially in terms of digitalization and how it affects higher education. If we look into the distance, into the future, we can see a number of themes emerging in higher education today. There's a rising demand, an incredible rising demand, a rising demand internationally for higher education that the present higher education market can't meet. There simply aren't enough universities to cope with the demand, and the demand is growing, especially in regions like, especially in Asia and East Asia, Indonesia being a particularly intensive demand. But also if you look at China and India and so on, that's where the economic focus is beginning to move, and that's where things are happening. So a massive rising demand, and we're not going to meet that just by building new universities, new campus universities. Online has got to be part of this. We're also getting new student groups. I'm not sure if there's so much of this maybe in Indonesia at the moment, but certainly in much of Europe and North America, we're seeing that more and more older people want to study. They want to go back to university to improve their skills, to get new skills, because you're never finished being educated. It never stops. And now we're seeing older people, not the traditional student market. Many more older people, they want to study part-time while they're working. More on that soon. There's a focus on skills. Governments want skilled workers. Companies want skilled workers. Universities have to provide the right skills, and they have to be relevant for the future. This means new forms of study, much more online learning. That is, it's growing enormously. And also just different pedagogies are being used and experimented with. The students themselves want more flexibility and personalization. I want to be able to study and work at the same time. I want to be able to study and have a family at the same time. I cannot live on campus for 4 years. Can you offer me some flexibility? There's a digital gap growing. There are many people who are already very digital and can take advantage of all the opportunities that are available online today, as I'm going to be talking about. But there are millions and millions who simply don't have these skills and are being left behind. This means that we have new roles for universities, new roles for teachers, even new roles for students, which I'll talk about. And we'll also see more and more new credentials coming along. We have our traditional degrees with bachelor and masters and PhDs and so on, but there are new credentials coming along, more work-based, and that's a challenge for the education industry. So there are plenty of challenges out there. In terms of the digital world, if we focus in more on that, when you're looking at creating flexible and creative digital learning spaces, I think digitally we have rather uninteresting learning spaces in the digital world. They tend to be very much text focused and not terribly interactive. That's changing, as I'll talk about soon. We also need to create a sense of community for online study, where people feel part of something and where there's social interaction. We also have, as I mentioned just now, a digital skills gap that we have to face. How do we make sure that our students, but also teachers, have the digital skills to take advantage of this new landscape in education? And we have quality issues. There are quality standards, there are quality labels for digital education, for online education. They need to be implemented more. We need to have much greater focus on how we use digital resources and digital arenas instead of, I think a lot of the quality systems are based on the traditional education system. As I said, we're seeing new student groups coming along. We're seeing much more professional development, much more lifelong learning. That means people my age and younger, of course, but from the age of 23 up till the age of 65, people need new training, new skills, and they want to do that without giving up their job and having to move to a university and living on campus. They want it integrated with work. So greater flexibility and integrated. They also want to get recognized for what they've learned already. And I think universities are going to have to look at, become much better at recognizing workplace skills, being able to assess what you've learned in your work, how you've applied it, look at the projects you've worked on, what skills you have, and give you credit for that. So that maybe we can say in the future that yes, you have already half of what it takes to get this master's qualification. All you need are these modules and we can give you a master's degree. But we can see that you don't have to study the same thing over again. We're also seeing slowly but surely campus and distance are merging. In the past, campus study was all in one place. You were full-time. You studied there between the ages of 18 and about 22, 23. And when you were finished with that, off you went into the world and worked. Distance learning is often seen as professional development. It's something that you do if you can't come to the campus. It's seen sometimes as a second-class route to higher education. But these two are merging. This student in the picture, is that a campus student or a distance student? It's impossible to say. Today's campus students sit and work online. They sit and listen to lectures online. They use online platforms to hand in their material. They study very much digitally. They come to class as well, but the digital space is where they are when they're not in class. The distance students are in the digital space all the time, but the two are becoming much, much closer together. Educational technology over the years has been very often a case of preservation rather than innovation. And what I mean by that is, when we get new technology, instead of seeing what we can do with it and what new ways of teaching we can develop with the help of this technology, we simply try to recreate what we already have done. And so we have recorded lectures where we simply film the teacher teaching in a classroom, put it onto the net and think, wow, that's new. There's nothing new about that. It's simply just doing what we've always done. Even in more advanced technical solutions, like on the left there, that picture with from a virtual world, Second Life it was called, in a world where you have avatars who can fly, you can create any environment you want. But when educators get into a world like that, what do they create? They create a stage. The avatars sit on chairs and look at PowerPoint slides. What's new? Nothing. So are we really being innovative in our use of technology, or are we just trying to make it help us do the same thing as before? This is this image, I'm just trying to provoke a discussion here that you can have later, but is education like a charter holiday? That means you sign up for a holiday and you go to a beautiful hotel with swimming pools and everything is laid on for you. You don't have to think very much because all the meals are already booked and all the excursions, everything is arranged for you, and you just enjoy it. Or is education teaching you how to be a backpacker, teaching you how to explore new worlds, how to find out for yourself, how to get there yourself, how to experience the world? I think we need to prepare our students to be backpackers rather than charter holiday tourists. You can have a very nice time on a charter holiday, but I think it's much more rewarding to get out there and do it yourself. We need to teach our students how to learn, and so that they can learn in the future on their own. And the next little question I have is, why do we keep teaching like we do on the left when learning is not quite so clean? We don't really learn by sitting and listening. Well, you're listening to me at the moment, I know that, but anyway, I think really if you want to learn something, you have to talk about it. After this talk, you have to talk in groups or with other people. What did you think of this? Well, what did you think of that? Spend time reflecting, working it out. Learning is not one-way communication. So we're redesigning the campus today. We are building it so that we have much more collaboration, much more active learning. The photos on the right there show students working together, collaborating, working it out for themselves in a space where the teacher is a facilitator, the teacher is a mentor trying to help them, providing information, being able to give them a sense of security, but letting them investigate themselves. And these new arenas that we have, these new spaces for student collaboration, they require new attitudes and new pedagogies. We can't just continue with traditional teaching in these situations. And the question is, if the physical spaces are so attractive and collaborative, what about the digital spaces? Are they collaborative, attractive, and social? We talk about blended learning a lot, and blended learning is often defined as digital and analog, as sort of online and on-site combined, so that you are meeting on site in a traditional classroom, but you're also using online resources through a learning management system or something like that. But I think blended learning is much more. Blended learning is combining the teaching of facts and theories and models, which is very much done by transmission of content, and blending that with practice, with working it out for yourself, using the facts and theories and models and working through them, collaborating, inquiry, getting stuck, asking questions, finding out for yourself. Because if you don't have that element, the course is just one-way traffic and it's just memorization. We need to combine those two, and we need to do them on site and online, so that blended learning is not just either or, digital or analog. It's about different types of pedagogies, different types of learning. And the pedagogical shift, you can look at this slide later, but the idea is we're moving from teaching-centered to learning-centered. We're going from memorizing information, from the teacher who knows everything telling the students who know nothing, the idea of filling a glass with knowledge, that is disappearing. Not completely, of course, we need to teach content, but we don't do it all the time. We're much more about helping students to solve problems, to apply knowledge, to actively work with the things and actually produce something in the end, and be able to do it in a practical, real-life situation. Today's digital learning spaces are much more collaborative than in the past. You can see each other. You can communicate in real time. You can have video discussions. You can have it's not just text. You can create mind maps together. You can have digital notice boards. You can work with virtual reality, augmented reality. You can have wonderfully interesting simulations that feel like real life. You can have asynchronous discussions. There is enormous potential. And I think, as I said earlier, we have to think of how can we use this to be innovative instead of just doing the same as we've always done. What extra dimensions do these technologies give us in our teaching? So really, the teacher's job today is what mix of traditional and digital arenas and tools foster effective learning. I think in the past, the teacher's tools were rather limited. You had a limited number of things you could do. So it was like going to a restaurant that had a dish of the day and not much else to choose between. Whereas the teacher today has this international buffet full of wonderful dishes. Some are good, some maybe not so good. They don't suit everybody, but out of all this wonderful buffet, you have to choose the right tools, the right methods for your class at this time for these learning outcomes. And they will be different every time. And don't worry, they don't have to be digital. It's about traditional and digital tools and methods. We're not throwing away the traditional methods, we're simply augmenting them with more. We have more to choose between. When we design our courses, we have to look at what's going on in the course and get the right mix, get the right blend. This picture comes from a concept called ABC Learning Design, which is a tool developed by University College London. It's free to use. Follow the link and you'll find out more. But the idea is it's based on Diane Laurillard's theories that you have different activities in a course. You have acquisition. It's about reading and listening and observing. That's the content delivery. Then the students need to do some investigating. They need to discuss. They need to collaborate. They need to practice. Then they need to produce. And think of your courses and think, do my courses include all of these elements? And what are the percentages of these elements? Do we have a good balance? Is it a good blend? Or is it too much of one thing? And I think that's where course design comes in. If we are going to design for effective learning, there are a number of success factors. And they apply really both online and on site, but especially in online courses. You need to have good structure and clarity in all courses. You need to be able, it must be very clear before students start the course. What's this course about? How am I going to learn? What's expected of me as a student? What can I expect from my teachers? How am I going to be assessed? What are the demands on me? All that sort of information must be very clear. What's the structure of the course? What are the learning outcomes? If all of these things are clear, the student has much greater motivation to follow the course to the end. And that's especially true online. Also, how are the learning spaces used? And again, this applies very much in the online setting, but even on campus. Are the learning spaces easy to use? Is there interaction and collaboration? Is there flexibility and variation? Very often, in digital learning spaces like a learning management system, when you go in there, it's just a lot of text, nothing but text. There are no pictures, there are no films, there's no design in it, and it's hard to find what's interesting. Successful courses have a lot of multimedia content. They're attractive in their design and layout, they're simple to use, and there's plenty interaction. The teacher is visible. I can watch the teacher introducing the course. The teacher can give feedback, not live, it can be just recorded like this. But when you see that sort of variation, there's more chance that the students will be involved. It's the same on site. If every class is in the same classroom with everybody sitting at the same desks and the teacher just lectures for 45 minutes and then says goodbye, it's not terribly exciting. And is there a community in the course? Do we try to build some kind of support, a community where everyone feels part of it, everyone feels as if they are seen and heard and appreciated? If we don't feel appreciated, if we don't feel that we are seen by the teacher and the other students, we'll drop out. And we need lots of support, especially in digital spaces. We need IT support, we need teaching support, the teachers need support. I wrote an article with a colleague a few years ago on this theme. If you're interested, you can click the link. We need to extend the discussion. Again, I'm talking about online and on-site. We need to find ways of extending the discussion beyond the short meetings we have with our students. Sometimes we meet our students on site for just a few hours a week. How can we extend that discussion? Sometimes online, you maybe have a synchronous meeting, a webinar or something. It's only for 1 hour. How do we get more discussion out of this? We need to use different types of media, multimodality. Recorded videos, lectures can be recorded and people can look at them before they come to the class. And then when they come to the class, they can go more in depth into the subject. They can ask more detailed questions. You can dig deeper instead of having lesson time taken up with one-way communication. That's what the flipped classroom concept is about. If it can be recorded, record it, let them see before they come to the meeting, and in the meeting, then we work and we discuss. A meeting should be a meeting. It's not a transmission of content. And we need to use much more asynchronous interaction. That can be discussion boards, but it can also be collaborative mind maps. It can be video discussions. It can be audio discussions. It can be shared documents. It can be many things, but we have to work much more with that. And that way you can give everyone a voice. The problem with a classroom discussion is that only a handful of students ever say anything. Most students say absolutely nothing. How can we give them a voice? And the answer is create a digital space where after the class, everyone can then go in and say what they think and ask questions, and the discussion continues online for the next day or two or the whole week. And that gives everyone a chance to say something instead of only the ones who put their hands up. If you're interested in some practical tools for collaboration between students and between teachers, this is a site from my university that I am responsible for, Smarter Collaboration. There you will find a guide to lots of free online tools for smarter collaboration. And there are many categories there. So you're welcome to look there and see what you can find. You might find something that you can use immediately. I've asked you, just a second, I will go back. I've asked you to write questions on a Padlet page, and I'm going so fast that you probably haven't had any time. So I would suggest that if you have any questions, or if you have any ideas around what I've been talking about, please write them down now on that Padlet page. I gave you the link before I started this talk. And I'd be very interested in answering all of your questions, so that please feel free to write down something. And this whole talk is also available on the Padlet page, and you can listen again if you want to. So I'm just waiting a little bit while some of you maybe might want to write something. You've maybe got some new ideas. You maybe think, oh, that's not possible, or I don't agree with that. Just write simply. I don't mind, as long as, of course, it has to be in English. But don't worry about spelling. Doesn't matter. I promise I'll answer. I will move on a little bit more. A big theme in education today is the theme of openness. And a lot of what we do in education is already, we use a lot of open resources. You know about open source, which is where computer programs and applications are written in open source code. And that means that they are developed by enthusiasts who then put all the code for that application on the net, and anybody can copy it. Anyone can use it. So we have the Linux operating system, which is completely free, and it's an alternative to Windows or to Apple's application system. It's become very popular. We've got the open source learning management system called Moodle. It's not owned by a big company. It's been developed by experts and enthusiasts around the world, and it's completely free. We talk a lot about open data. That means sharing public data freely for research purposes and for people to develop new applications. We also have open access for academic publication, because this is it's crazy that an awful lot of the best research in the world is locked away behind very expensive subscriptions. We should publish openly, and so that everyone in the world can read our research. I think it only makes sense. It's becoming more and more popular. We even talk about open innovation, where companies open up their innovation processes and let customers and even other companies take part. And we also have open educational resources, where teachers and universities publish their learning resources, their teaching material, openly online, and tell others, you're free to copy, you're free to use it as long as you credit us and as long as you follow the license. So open educational resources is a big theme today. And many universities in the world publish all their teaching resources openly online, and you're free to copy it. American MIT have open courseware that is mountains of excellent teaching material in the form of lectures, workshops, exercises, even tests, web pages, and it's free to copy and translate as long as you credit the original. The Open University in the UK also has a platform called Open Learn, and there are lots of open resources. More and more universities are producing open textbooks, where the teachers are writing textbooks for the first and second year courses, undergraduate courses, and publishing them freely. University of British Columbia in Canada does this on BC Open Ed, and they have basic textbooks in all of their subjects. And they're free for you to copy, free for you to download and read or use as course literature as you want. They're nearly all in English, but it's up to other nationalities and other countries to do the same. So open textbooks are a rival to the very expensive textbooks that many students have to spend a lot of money on each year. UNESCO has a directive urging all UNESCO member countries to develop policies to further develop open educational resources. We also have open courses, massive open online courses, thousands of university level courses all over the world that are freely available. There are thousands of universities doing this. There are global platforms and regional platforms. There are many, many languages. In Indonesia, you have the Indonesia X platform, and here you have many, many courses in Indonesian that are freely available. You can study them for free. They do not normally lead to credits, but you get a certificate of participation. Sometimes you have to pay for the certificate, but the courses are free and online and are being used by many as professional development. In the world, there are much bigger platforms. Coursera is enormous, based in the USA, but there are hundreds of world universities that belong to it. There's edX, there's FutureLearn, and many more. You can click on the links and investigate. Many universities are beginning to offer MOOCs for credits, and even creating degree programs online from these massive open online courses. Of course, there's a problem with recognition, but it's getting clearer. There are ways of examining these courses at examination centers or partner universities to make the credentials more credible. So this is another avenue, this is another evolution that is happening. And there are new things happening in this field every day. The problem is still, even if we have so much open education and free education available, the people who need it most don't know it exists. And we need to think of how can we get the message over to the people who really need this type of education? How can we help them to get on board? How can we give them the digital skills and make the technology available for them to benefit from this? And finally, I want to just think a little bit of what's happened in the world of technology in recent years. We talked a lot about the wisdom of the crowd, that if we all get together on the internet and we all interact and discuss with each other, we can have a more peaceful world. We will understand cultures much better. We will have greater democracy. That was the dream of the internet, connecting everybody to encourage dialogue and discussion and greater understanding. The trouble is, yes, it does that, but it has also done the opposite. And instead of the wisdom of the crowd, we get the rage of the mob, and we get mob thinking. We get fake news, as we hear about all the time. An increase in hatred and tension and distrust around the world, with all sorts of crazy ideas being spread about, so much prejudice, so much hatred. It's frightening. It really is. We have the potential to do so much good in creating the wisdom of the crowd, but we have our primitive instincts that are leading us to negative behavior that was always there, but it's made even stronger via the internet. And the problem is really today, who can you trust? Because many of the big tech companies promised us all these wonderful benefits, but have also taken our data and sold it. There are scandals around Facebook and especially Google, and how they use our personal data to make profits and sell to advertisers. And more people are beginning to say, no, we don't like this. This is a breach of our integrity. We have to try to do something to stop it. We don't want you to use our personal data to make profits. Can we trust these organizations? Well, we have to be careful, let's say, in the future. And with educational technology, especially the commercial stuff, I would say don't believe the hype. Don't believe all the exaggerated claims. The tech companies are talking a lot about disruption and revolution and how this is sweeping away education and sweeping away the traditional education system. And there are many grand claims have been made over the years. I don't really like the word disruption, even if it's a theme of your conference. I think disruption can be violent. Disruption and revolution are not always positive, are not positive words for me. I would rather see a controlled change than disruption, because disruption hurts people. It tears up existing structures and sometimes doesn't replace it with anything. It's frightening. And I don't want a frightening development. I think we need to take charge of our own development, and we need to be more mature. A problem with many universities is this fear of missing out. that if we don't use this new technology, then we're missing out. We'll look stupid if we don't use it. We have to use this great new device or this great new technical breakthrough, or other people will laugh at us. We must be careful not to fall into that trap. We have to assess these innovations, see what can they do for us, how can we benefit from it, and we have to weigh up the disadvantages as well and how we can combat them. There are no miracle solutions, especially when it comes to learning. We've seen that for over 100 years. There have been all sorts of miracle solutions, like learning by radio, learning by television, all sorts of claims that if you buy this wonderful device or this wonderful application, you can learn more effectively. I'm not sure any of those have been proved to work. Learning is hard work. It will always be hard work, no matter how many wonderful apps and devices we have. We need to be careful and a little bit skeptical with some of the miracle solutions. But we also must make sure we try them and test them and see what we can do with them. Don't just say it's nonsense and hide your head in the sand. We also have to wonder, when something is free, why is it free? Nothing really is free. They want something from us. When it's free, maybe you are the product, as they say. Maybe it's your data that you're paying the price with. If you're aware of that, then you can make more mature decisions. So being safe online is one thing we need to transmit to our students. We need to also adopt it ourselves. We need some kind of platform literacy. And what I mean by that is to become more aware of the platforms we use. What are the terms and conditions? What does it mean to use this platform? What am I giving away? What am I giving up? What are the risks? If you can assess that, you can make a mature, educated decision on whether you use it or whether you don't use it, whether you recommend it for students or not, and how to use it. So we need to get smarter. Try alternatives. Many alternatives out there do the same thing as the commercial solutions, but they don't track you. They don't follow you. They don't store your data in the same way, and they don't sell that data onwards. Everybody searches with Google, I think. Try not searching with Google. It's maybe not the same, but the thing with Google is Google gives you the results that it thinks you want, and often gives you a very narrow search results based on what you've done before. There's a search tool called duckduckgo.com. Try that. It doesn't track you. It doesn't remember you very well at all. It gives you search results, but not based on previous experience of you. It's a different experience, yes, but and takes a bit of getting used to, but they're not following you. They're not tracking everything you do, and they're not storing your information. Try using another browser. Again, Chrome is very popular, but try Firefox, try Vivaldi. Tor is a very revolutionary tool. It's very simplified, but it doesn't follow you at all. It doesn't remember you at all. You are almost completely invisible when you search, when you use that as a browser, though it's a very limited browser. But you can test them. There are social networks that don't follow you or track you or sell your data. Okuna is one that's being set up at the moment, a little bit like Facebook, but not with the negative side. Share things with respect. Use Creative Commons pictures, public domain pictures, and show where they come from, like I have done with all the pictures in this presentation. Reducing tech stress. We need leadership. We need leaders, management who understand these issues and develop clear policies. We need stress-free technical infrastructure in our universities. Help the teachers to use digital tools without feeling stupid, without having to give up, without getting completely confused. We need lots of support. We need training. We need incentives for teachers to be innovative. We need to design our courses in teams, not individually, helping each other. preferably with the help of educational technologists who understand the technology, so that the teachers don't have to learn all the technology themselves. They get help with it. We need quality criteria and quality assurance in the digital spaces that we create. And it's all really about attitudes and cultures in the end. We need to look at teachers' attitudes and cultures towards innovation, and how can we help them to become more innovative. We need to do the same with students. Students very often, they're used to a certain style and they don't really like change either. They need to be helped. They need to change their attitudes, and we need to help them with that. Our institutions, universities also need new attitudes and cultures, and up at government level as well. And if all of these are, if we can affect the attitudes and cultures of all these levels, we can really do wonderful things with technology. The technology is there. It's the attitudes and cultures that we need to look at. So in the end, I would say we're talking about evolution, not disruption. It's a little bit like an iceberg, like a glacier. It's moving very slowly, and it's changing the landscape completely. When you sit on top of the glacier, you don't notice that it's moving. It's going quite slowly. But if you don't pay attention to the fact that it is moving and that it's changing the landscape, when it melts, you will be lost. So you have to be aware that things are changing. You have to adapt to the changes. Then it'll be part of an evolution. If you try to ignore it, then it will be disruptive because you won't understand what has happened. These are my digital footprints. You're welcome to check out my blog. There's my university profile with links to all my articles. And if you want to check me on Twitter, I don't do anything personal on Twitter. It's all about learning and education. So I thank you very much for watching, and I will look forward to answering your questions on Padlet, or hopefully now live.